Hey, it's Irina and welcome back to the Career Cravings Podcast. This podcast has a simple mission. It's to help ambitious professionals like you build the career and life that you've been craving. Over the past 15 years, I've worked as an HR leader, designed hiring systems, led recruitment teams, and I've sat on the other side of the hiring table. I've seen what works in today's job market, what doesn't, and what separates those good candidates from the ones that actually land their dream roles. Now I'm bringing everything I've learned straight to you. Each episode is packed with actionable insights and tools to help you land your dream role sooner. Now let's dive in. Emily, hello. I am so excited to have you here on Career Cravings and to talk about a topic that you are an expert in and I am super passionate about, which is misalignment burnout. So this is a big and a very deep topic, very close to my heart. So first of all, welcome. And I'd love to hear from your perspective what misalignment burnout is.
Thank you so much for having me, first off. Misalignment burnout is something that I think is a newer term or phrase that we're not quite aware of. I feel like a lot of professionals and entrepreneurs know what burnout is, and we tend to think about it as I'm just exhausted. I have so many hours, so much on my plate. I feel overwhelmed. I feel scattered. And oftentimes we just feel like we need a reset or a vacation. And when we return, we'll be energized again. Misalignment burnout is very different. And it's something that vacation usually won't fix. And it's the definition that I've come up with is when you're doing something for so long that is no longer in alignment with your values, your desires, or your beliefs. So it's like you've been, and I hear this from so many women who say like, I've been in this role and it looks great on paper, it looks impressive, but I feel so unfulfilled. And like, why can't I just be grateful? Is it that I just need new tasks or new management or a new environment? And it could be, but oftentimes it's also something much deeper in that you are starting to outgrow an identity that you used to be. And so we can dive in deeper into that, but typically misalignment burnout, it isn't a overnight burn. It's often a slow burn. Like it's been happening for some time and now it's becoming so big that you're like, something is off, but I can't quite name it.
Yes. Okay, I love what you talk about in terms of the evolution of who you're becoming and not being aligned to this newer version of yourself. Because you're right. Right before we turned this on, we were just talking and I'm like, this is so big. I felt like this so many times in my career. And this is why I'm so excited to chat about it. But we evolve. Like when you think about the number of years that we are working, it is a very long time. And for me personally, I was in HR for 15 years, started feeling this misalignment burnout, didn't know what it was called. So I love that you name it like that. It's genius. But there was this internal whisper at first where it was like, something is not right. And then when you don't listen to your internal thoughts, that's when it gets into this bigger, it can manifest itself more on the external as well, right? So I would love to hear from you. How have you personally experienced misalignment burnout? What did that look like for you?
Yeah. And first, I want to just acknowledge that makes a ton of sense because we work with so many women that are multi-passionate, multi-talented. And thank God we don't have to be like the shoemaker for an entire generation and we get to pivot. But for me, misalignment burnout actually came up most recently in my business. And for some background, I used to be in HR, recruiting, and then I ended up in job search coaching. And I did that for about 5 years. Loved it at first. It was really great. As you know, like the most rewarding feeling is hearing from a client, I landed my dream job. It was like, yes, yay. But over time, I started to notice a pattern. The women that landed dream jobs, they'd be happy, we'd celebrate, and then I'd get an email, months, sometimes years later, that was just like, I'm no longer happy. Something happened in this workplace or the organization shifted or I got laid off and I'm freaking out. I don't know what else to do. And so over time, I started to see this pattern of what I really want to support women around is resilience and building that self-trust and also the clarity of like, what do you actually want in life? Not just like, what is the logical or the most convenient path, but like, what do you really want? And I feel like that is, again, the core of misalignment burnout. It's like, what is your true desire? What is it that if you weren't afraid, like, what would you want to have the courage to go after? And so for the latter part of 2024, I was just selling my same job search coaching because it was familiar, it was safe, it was predictable, it was working. It was like nothing was wrong. So why do I feel like I need to burn this down? And I could tell like the things that should have taken me only a few minutes to do, I was constantly procrastinating. It's like constantly putting off certain activities. When I showed up to talk about job search, I was like, on the outside, I'm so excited to talk to you about XYZ. But in the inside, I had this internal whisper, as you mentioned, of like, you're such a fraud. Like, no, you're not. And so I was constantly at this like push and pull with myself. And that again leads to burnout. It's like part of me is saying, I want this. Another part of me is like, no, you've outgrown this. Like, why are you still doing this? And so for me, I made a big decision in 2024 to walk away from job search coaching and to start going into what I really get excited about, which is helping women. Essentially, now I'm like a clarity coach. If I think about it, like, what do you really want? Okay, now let's go after it. And it's been so fulfilling and so rewarding. But I wanted to like highlight a lot of people think that they need to like burn things down or start over. But actually, sometimes it just takes a small nudge in a different direction, whether it's a new topic or a new audience or maybe a new offer, new pricing. You know, it doesn't always have to be like this overwhelming 180 of like eat, pray, love to figure out what you want.
Oh my goodness. There's so much in there that I want to touch on. But the first thing that comes to mind is I'm so proud of you for listening to your internal signs and listening to that whisper and just not continuing to do something or to offer a program that was no longer aligned with who you've become in the process. And things have gone well for 5 years, and that's amazing. And then there's a new evolution, and you're still you're still using all of the skills as a recruiter that you learned or throughout your career. You're not burning anything down. You're not burning your business down. You're pivoting to offer a transformation that you have most recently went on yourself, which is, I think, the most beautiful part. So you touched also on the way it felt, like doing a simple task that used to take you not very much time at all. You're probably like talking yourself into it now. Like, you got this, Emily. You could do this. You can answer those emails. You could host this call. What other signs are there for someone that might be listening, that might be thinking, ooh, do I have this? Like this sounds familiar. I don't feel myself. I do ask myself these questions as well. Like, is this really it? Is this what I want? What are some signs for someone to look internally and to determine whether or not this is an issue for them?
Great question. For a lot of the women I work with, there is a lot of should or need to or have to language. So they say like, oh, I should do this or I have to do this. And what I want to hear from people who are in alignment is, I want to do this. I desire to do this. Like whenever you're shitting on yourself, then you know, okay, like let me pause here and see and check in with myself. What do I really want? Another really big one is just your overall energy. I'm really big on noticing inside of our bodies. Do we feel contraction? Like, is there this low-key dread where we're like dragging our feet? Or is there an expansion? Because I think a lot of times when you're moving outside of your comfort zone, it is scary, but a lot of times people take that scary interpretation or that fear as like a stop sign. But actually, when you tune into your body, like, do you feel more lit up and excited and energized and open-hearted? Because that's also a sign that that's the right direction for you. And I feel like a lot of times people think that the path of least resistance is alignment, but actually alignment is challenging sometimes. It's like saying no to easy opportunities. Again, with my whole pivot, it would be the easiest thing to just continue doing what I've been doing. But now I'm doing something different. And there's a lot of resistance, but there's also a lot of excitement behind it. Like I feel so joyful, so energized. Yes, there's hardships and challenges that I wouldn't have on the other path. But again, I tune into my body a lot of like what feels expansive and energizing. And that's how I always know that I'm on the right path.
I love that. It's like doing an internal audit and listening in to your intuition.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and that is something that so many people struggle with, including myself. And like in my own career, there were so many decisions and pivot points. And one comes to mind where I know I had misalignment burnout. So in 2020, when so many people, there was like this awakening, I'm sure you know, right? So many people had more time to really think about, ooh, what does my next chapter look like? What is alignment for me? And that's when I think for the first time in a long time, I actually listened to internally to what I wanted, because I always went with the next promotion, the thing that made sense on paper, what I should be doing, to your point. And at that point, I knew I was ready for more. I knew I was ready to move organizations. I'd been with my last company for 7 years. I had gone for promotions internally. It wasn't working out. I knew my next step was external, but it was 2020. I was afraid. I thought if I left my organization, it wouldn't be as stable, with everything going on in the economy and so many people were laid off. Oh, I should be grateful. I have a role where I can work from home. But inside, because I wasn't listening to that and I wasn't taking action towards what I needed to do, it started manifesting. Like after I stopped listening to myself, I would try to go to sleep at night. Nothing was wrong. And I could not sleep. Like it started showing up like insomnia, racing thoughts. I wasn't proud of my career anymore. And I wasn't doing anything about it, which is like the worst part, I think, of it all as someone who is typically like an action taker. But so many people, to your point, like you said, let fear be the stop sign.
Yeah.
But fear is just a signal that something is new. And your body's trying to keep you safe, right? From doing this thing that might potentially be hard.
I love all of that. Can I just add something?
Yes, please.
I don't fault you at all for ignoring all of those signs, because if you think about it, most of us have been taught and trained to ignore everything below our neck. Like through academia, in the corporate space, we're really rewarded on being logical and pragmatic and analytical. So it makes complete sense that you were like, well, this is the logical path. And it's scary to like go against that grain, because that's how like society rewards us, right? And I think for a lot of us, we derive so much meaning after college in our careers. Like we don't get praise or accolades or awards or achievements for being the best friend or like a good mom or, and so to step away from that is often really terrifying because, again, it is that unpredictability, that uncertainty. And what I know to be true and what I've seen so much in my clients is whenever you're doing what is right for you and like what your core desire is or your core values or your core identity, everything else kind of falls into place. And that's kind of where the self-trust needs to be built. Because if we don't have the self-trust and also trust in something greater, then that's when we get into our own heads and we stay in this unfulfilling place. And to me, that unfulfilling whisper like never disappears. And it
gets louder.
And the more you ignore it or you try to dismiss it, the louder it becomes. But the longer you wait, you also like your confidence erodes, your self-trust erodes. And that's the part where you then find yourself stuck for sometimes years in this situation that you just tolerate because it's comfortable, it's predictable. But again, that misalignment burnout is going to scream at you.
Yes, eventually it will come to a head. It's so true. And in my experience, what ended up happening was I did end up much later, like 2 years later, going for it, landing the role that I wanted. And this is what I want to pick your brain on, because I think so many people, it's what you said, they end up landing that dream role, quote unquote, that they wanted and that they worked so hard for. But a couple months later, you're kind of like, is this really it? And I ended up landing a director of talent management and recruitment role, which literally was the role I wanted since I started in HR.
Mm.
But the truth is, as soon as I went into that role, I'm like, I don't think this is it. Like, it doesn't feel like everything that I had wanted out of that role. And again, like any high achiever, I ignored it again. And I was like, no, no, no. We're going to stay on track. You landed a great role with a great title and great pay. You're going to just be grateful and move right on. But that didn't last very long this time. And I did end up making a change and started this business eventually. But it took for a big life event. So for someone who's listening, that's like, okay, I think this is me. I'm feeling like I'm hearing that I want to do something different internally. It seems scary. How can someone get clarity about not burning it all down, like you said, but about making this maybe even micro pivot, an adjustment to what they've been doing without abandoning everything behind? What is like, how do they get clarity about that next most aligned role for them?
It's exactly what you did. Like, I love that you had this vision of this is what I want. And then you stepped into the role and then you recognized, wow, this is actually not it. And pausing long enough to be like, well, what is it that I desire instead? You know, I talk to so many women who say, I don't know what I want. But when you know what you don't want, you actually know what you do want because you just find the inverse of that. And to me, clarity comes from those micro actions and micro steps because each time you take a step forward, you get more insight and you get more data points to then be like, that wasn't it. But at least I'm closer now to the next thing, as long as we keep moving and, to your point, course correcting. And I don't believe in like career mistakes because you could have a vision of what you want on paper. You could read all about it till you're blue in the face. But until you're actually in it and you're in that environment with that team, with that boss, with that, everything that makes a place jive, you won't really know. And you can't fault yourself if you take something. Because I actually had a very similar situation as you. Went through the interview process, thought this was the dream job. I even came home to my now husband and was like, oh my God, my boss is amazing. He's so smart. I'm going to learn so much. And then I started day one and I was like, oh my God, I got bait and switched. Like, this is a complete nightmare. This is the worst boss ever. And now I call it my best, worst boss ever because in that role, I decided one day after crying in the bathroom, I'm never going to have a boss again. And that was the catalyst for me to now start the business that I'm in. And so I don't believe in any kind of mistakes in the sense of like, I really believe that everything is happening for us so that we can get clarity and that we can then make a new decision and put us on a new path. And we have so many opportunities. Sometimes the path forces us to, whether it's a layoff, getting fired, sometimes that happens for us and it's not beautiful. It's not pretty in the moment, but in hindsight, we can look back at it once we're out of it and be like, oh, that's why that happened.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I just really believe that there's no need to like necessarily panic or freak out or feel like, oh my God, I made such a big mistake because everything is just data.
Absolutely. And I love that you don't regret going into that role telling yourself, I should have taken a different role because that was the catalyst, like you said, to start your business and to get really aligned and really on the path that was aligned with who you became. And after that, you reassessed again 5 years later, right? To be like, okay, what is most aligned with who I've become now at this point? Like, who is Emily now and what does she want? Mm-hmm. And what you said about testing, essentially, being able to test out different roles, be in them, experience them, but then get super clear about, okay, is it this whole job? Is it the organization? Is it my boss? Is it something else? And to listen to that. So first step I heard is, first of all, admitting that you are experiencing misalignment burnout and listening to yourself and taking that seriously and not just trying to should yourself into staying somewhere where you don't belong. And then second, being clear on like, what are those factors for you that are contributing? Is it your boss and so on? Love that. Okay, good. And
to add
tell me,
yes. Because I love that once you're aware, like awareness is important, but The next step after that, I would say, is then advocating for yourself. Because I think a lot of people, they think, okay, well, this boss just doesn't respect me and I'm never heard. And so they kind of troubleshoot it by thinking their only option is to exit, to find another organization. And while that can be true, like I always tell my clients to use your existing workplace as a playground. Like if you're going to leave,
Yes.
know you're going to leave. What is it that you really want to set boundaries around? What is it that you really want to advocate and practice? Because you have nothing to lose at this point. And so a lot of my clients, they think the solution is to find another job. But then when they realize like, oh, I just need to have like a one-on-one, get on my boss's calendar, tell them what, like, I don't like this micromanaging, like the micromanaging isn't working for me. What I would love to do is X, Y, Z, and like really put in a clear request. They find sometimes that that's all that was needed. And they're much happier because they've been able to communicate. But a lot of the women that I work with, they have patterns of people pleasing. They have patterns of overproducing. They have patterns of being a perfectionist. And so like all of these patterns, as I call them, are also what's leading to the burnout. So we always want to see like what we can clean up on our side of the street and what patterns do I have that maybe I can work on here in this place before I just run off to another place or I think I need to do a 180 in my life. And that personally has been my story too, because I was such a big people pleaser. And I was like, I'm so afraid to like upset people or disappoint people or deliver quote unquote bad news that oftentimes I would just think, okay, my only option is to flee. That was my nervous system response. Like I'm always just going to like either flight or I'll just freeze here. And so that's another thing that I work with a lot of my clients on because oftentimes we continue to have like similar situations arise until we learn how to break that pattern. And so if anybody's listening to this and they're like, but every workplace is toxic or every workplace demands so much of me, that's an invitation to look at what's misaligned internally.
Yes. And the root cause. Like I'm hearing a lot of like actually getting to the root cause of some of the issues that are being experienced. And, you know, I don't think of myself as a people pleaser, but when you say that, it is so hard to communicate those difficult conversations because we know often what the other side wants to hear.
Yeah.
So walking through kind of my personal story. So when I landed that dream role, quote unquote, now I believe there might not be such a thing as a big dream role, right? And we do have to continue to align as we're evolving as humans. But I remember journaling for months on like, okay, what is the root issue here? Like I have checked all the boxes of what I said I wanted. What is the issue? And I came up with a couple of things. One, I didn't feel like I was in my purpose. I felt like I could have a bigger impact or I was meant to impact people in a greater way. So that was one of the things. And the other thing was the commute, which I don't know where you're located, but I'm in Toronto in the GTA. I was driving 3 hours a day to and from the office. And I didn't see that as a great value of time for anyone, really. And I remember telling myself, okay, I'm going to go speak to my boss now. I'm going to tell him that, you know, I'd love more flexibility and then I'd also love a bigger impact. And I remember circling his office, like he was an in-person kind of guy and his office was shut. And I remember like literally sweating and I kept walking by his office to go to the washroom over and over again to see if he was free to have this very scary conversation. And it ended up going well. So I think too, for people that get to that root cause, figure out the couple of things that they can shift internally. You're right. You have nothing to lose because my other plan was just to resign one day, but I didn't feel good about not giving the opportunity for myself or the organization to kind of try to make things a little bit better. Right. So love that you coach people through that, especially those that have even more trouble speaking up. I can't imagine, like I typically am not someone who has trouble with that, but it's just so difficult in that situation.
Yeah. And it's beautiful because you care. Like you care to not try to inconvenience someone. And I think for a lot of people pleasers, it boils down to, I don't want to be inconvenient, or I don't want to disappoint someone, or I don't want to make somebody feel bad or put more on their plate or whatever it is. And so the beautiful thing behind people pleasing is like you care and you're looking for safety through approval, right? And ultimately, to shift out of that, I think we need to stop labeling things as good or bad, right or wrong, convenient or inconvenient. Because when you think about your specific situation, it would have been a bigger inconvenience to the company if they lost you, right?
Mhm.
But for you to ask for flexibility, for them to be able to meet you there, like, wow, what a great win-win for both parties, in my opinion. So,
Yes.
yeah,
So
I
much
just
better
really
than the
want
alternative.
totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like people need the success story to be like, oh, okay. You originally were 5 days in the office and then they agreed to have you come in once a month. That's like a huge win. So if someone's listening, you really don't have anything to lose if the next alternative is just you fleeing, like you said, right?
Mhm.
I'd actually love to learn more about that in your own story. So I remember listening to your podcast and you had this episode that was about closing down a very profitable business, right? It was
Mhm.
like a $1 million program, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that would be very hard to pivot away from because it's proven, it's easy, it's tested. You already had the ideal situation that you described, which is you will never have a boss again, which is amazing. How did you trust yourself enough to know that it was okay to make that decision and to pivot into something new and start over in a lot of senses?
Yeah. So first, I have to acknowledge there's a level of privilege, right? Because if you
Mm.
are somebody who doesn't know where your rent is coming from next month, you're in survival mode and you can't make desire choices. It really is more of a need. And I was fortunate enough to be in a place of, okay, I have a good cushion. I have savings. What do I want to really build from here? And to me, I think the choice really came down to, if I continue doing this path, am I going to be happy and fulfilled? Because ultimately, that's what we all want at the end of the day is
Yes.
fulfillment and purpose and happiness. And I just knew from the way that I was showing up, the way that I was losing my momentum, my energy, like I stopped creating content and I thought,
Mm.
it's because I don't enjoy content creation. Like content creation is so tedious and it takes up so much time. But actually, the moment I gave myself permission to stop talking about solely job searching and to talk about misalignment burnout and all of this, oh my gosh, that same weekend, I had like a 30-page Google document of all the things I wanted to talk about. And then
Oh
when
my
I
goodness.
sat down to record, I felt like, oh my gosh, I have more energy than I know what to do with. And so that's when I knew it wasn't the act of content creation. It was, again, the thing that I was talking about that was off, that was misaligned, essentially. So when I started to notice that and just like how much energy I got, the decision was pretty clear and easy for me. And
Mm.
I don't ever think about things as like starting over because this was actually proven in me doing the pivot to career clarity coaching. It was like, wow, I'm not starting from a zero email list. I'm not starting from zero
Yes.
followers. I'm not sitting here Googling, how do I create a funnel? I'm not here sitting like, how do I create a new program? Like, I already know how to do all of that. And I think regardless if you're an entrepreneur or you're in the corporate space, we all have experiences that are transferable. And
Yes.
every single experience has led us to where we are today. And even though we're talking about a different industry or a different topic or a different role, there's so many characteristic traits and just knowledge and experience that we've gained that will transfer over. So I always say like skill is something that is company specific, but your talents, your gifts are what is transferable and is the through line to whatever you want to do out there in the planet.
Yes. It's like the red thread, right?
Mhm.
It's like you had built skills your whole life from being a recruiter and then helping people land roles. And then you established all of the foundation for your business, even if you're still coaching people on the topic of careers. I mean, there's so much that's transferable, but I know sometimes we can get in our head and just think, oh, this is brand new.
Yeah.
I remember there was a point in when I was really early to starting the business, and I had a business coach. And I think she was trying to get me to increase my prices because my one-to-one had been sold out.
Mm.
And what I blurted out of my mouth was, I can't do that. I'm new. And I meant like, I'm a new coach. Like, why would I do that? That makes no sense. And she just looked at me and she was like, Irina, you're not new. She's like, I've worked in HR for 15 years. Like, how are you new at all? But I just meant like, this is a new program. This is a new
Right.
business. I'm not sure. And it was just fear. So it's so helpful to have someone as a coach, someone who's gone through that transformation personally, someone who can mirror back to you maybe some of those myths or that fear coming up and really help to find the through line of the red thread of like, you're not burning everything down. You're not leaving everything behind. You're making a pivot. And I love how you tested it earlier to what we were talking about. Like you started talking about something slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
And then you saw the shift it made within you, within your energy, within your excitement. And of course, anything you're that excited about, you're just naturally going to do better at because it's sort of like the 10,000 hour rule, right? The more we're good at something, the more we want to do it, the better we are at it. And it's like full circle. That's when we see promotions and people can tell we're doing a great job. And then more people kind of feel that energy. So love that. And you're right. It is the privilege point. That's so valid because I shared just before we started this that I'm writing a book and I was just recently writing this chapter and my mom was over actually. And my mom is like an immigrant who had a very different life than I have today.
Mm-hmm.
And the jobs that she always had have been based on survival. Like she never got to pick her career based on passion. So we have had very different experiences. So I'm explaining kind of like what we're talking about right now to her. And she right away stops me. And she's, by the way, the most supportive person. Like she thinks I can do anything, things I can't even do, like sing or dance. It's embarrassing. She thinks I'm great at it. Like but she just looked at me. She's like, Irina, people don't have choice. Like not everyone can be like you to like pick what you're passionate about and go into that. And I was like, I was taken aback, but it's so true. You have to look at where you are and what your needs are. And it's also like, I think of that Maslow hierarchy.
Yes.
If you're trying to satisfy those lower needs of safety, security, where is my rent money coming from next month? Of course, you're not focusing on self-actualization, which is essentially what we're talking about and how to get into the thing that really lights you up and do more of that. So there is a time and place, which is super valid, right?
I love that. I always think about our life in seasons or chapters, and there may be a chapter of survival. But once you're there, like you're on the lifeboat, like let's make sure you're not just sitting there. Because I think that's where a lot of people, they then have the limiting beliefs of like, well, it's possible for other people, but it's not possible for me. And so
Yes.
this again is really where that micro action, that building of self-trust comes in. And to your point, having a coach to be like, okay, well, let me share and reflect what I'm seeing here. And I want to go back to actually something you touched on, which was the authenticity piece. Because I really believe like people can see through how you really feel about something. And so this goes back to even in your interviews, you can say you're excited about this company or their product, or you're really keen on doing XYZ. But like, if it's not really an integrity with you, or if it's not really authentic, I believe people can see that. And actually, that was a big part of why I pivoted, because I was like, I'm not in integrity with myself. And again, that's the misalignment burnout. It's like what I value, what I believe, what I desire is not in congruence. And so I feel it, but I also believe that other people who are receiving you can see through that as well.
Yes, 1,000%. I love coaching people on that piece for the interview because, and I ask my clients, like, they're trying to build their pitch, let's say, right? They're preparing for a specific interview. And I'm like, what is really exciting to you? And then they'll mention a couple things from the website, or like, I could feel the energy. I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you really excited about this opportunity? Like, tell me more, just speak to me, right?
Yeah.
And then they start lighting up. And then they start talking about the things that are really exciting to them. And I'm like, that's it. Like, that's the energy I need you to bring, because they will feel it. And we could say certain things and then they'll just fall flat if our energy isn't fully behind what we're doing. And eventually, I think it's genius that you did pivot when you say you were feeling the energy drain, because eventually it would catch up. And that really successful program may look different down the line if people are starting to feel that energy. If you're never going to create content anymore, if you're not going to host sessions, right? I mean, it'll all add up. I truly believe when we're most aligned to our path, to our authenticity, to our alignment, that red thread, we're using our skills, things become so much easier. I don't want to say effortless, because I mean, work is work at the end of the day, even if you're passionate about it, but it's going to be so much easier, and you're going to do so much better at it as well, right?
Yeah, I almost see it as like when you have your spark or you have your joy, it gives you more fuel. So it could be that you're working on something more challenging or something that's hard, but you have momentum building. And it's so funny you brought up the interview thing, because I talk to candidates all the time, and they feel like they need to say the right things and the right buzzwords and like recite the thing on their website. But you're absolutely right. Like when it comes across, I'm like, tell me what you really want to say. And then that's they light up, and that spark can be felt. And I always say, I love that quote, like communication is not necessarily about what you say, but it's how you make another person feel. And I think when you're in misalignment burnout, people feel that. Like you don't have to say, I'm tired, I'm over this, I'm drained, or like F this. Like people can feel in the way that you show up, whether you're conscious of it or not, right? And so much language is nonverbal, and people pick up on that nonverbal cue all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is so full circle to what we talked about in the beginning, because it's like, okay, you ignore the whisper. That impacts just you internally. So then you start maybe not sleeping as well. You get more tired. You start taking longer to complete tasks. Then other people start to notice eventually, and things keep escalating. And now it's on the external, where people feel that and they can see it. You don't have to tell them any longer. And then it's nearly impossible from that state to show up as your best self, to the version that you're proud of, the most optimistic version, the version that people love to be around. And then it seeps into your relationships, your whole life, your family, your friendships. I mean, everything. There's such a huge cost to not listening to yourself internally, to your intuition, when you are starting to see the signs and feeling this way.
I really think that's like the definition of an identity crisis. It's like you are literally no longer who you were, like in that role, that situation, that point of time. You're like in this new chapter. You're wanting to move into this new chapter. The new chapter is being asked to be written, but you're still in that old chapter. And it's like, the gap is so big that eventually you have to crumble to like be able to make that leap. And so what I just want to help people with is like, okay, let's notice that whisper. Okay, something's calling you. Let's not wait until things crumble and like things get so bad or you're forced out. Like, let's be intentional about it and start again, not doing 180 pivots, but just that next curiosity, that next nudge, that next whisper that's really calling you. If we can stop ignoring it and start walking towards it, I really think that the path starts to reveal itself. And then with that next step, the spark comes back, the joy comes back, the momentum
You're taking action towards what you know you're meant to do, instead of trying to put it under a pillow and ignore it and hope no one notices.
Correct.
I love that.
I feel like a lot of the women I speak to, they use the words, I feel stuck or I feel stagnant to describe this situation. And it literally is that. It's like, I'm not moving. I'm not doing anything. What I know now is like we all have coping strategies. So a lot of us, we scroll, we numb, whether it's with shopping or alcohol or drugs or
food.
For a lot of high achievers, working is a coping strategy. If I could just be more productive, if I could just keep busy, it feels like I can let that voice go away because at least I'm doing something. But eventually, it's going to keep creeping up. And no matter what you do, until you address it, it's either you address it now or it's you address it later. But ultimately, it needs to be addressed.
Yes. Oh, there's so much there to end on. But, as you were talking, I really lit up because you talked about a crisis. like a career crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about like a midlife crisis, let's say, it's so apparent to everyone. It's like the 50-year-old man that buys a red sports car and gets a divorce or something, right? And some things are just so clear to everyone on the outside, and some things are internal.
Mm-hmm.
And a crisis is something sometimes that only we feel. And just to bring it back to something you said like maybe half an hour ago, but you mentioned a powerful question, which is like, if you could do anything, what would that be?
Mm-hmm.
And like start listening to that. I think that's a beautiful thing to end on. What would you guide a client on? Say they know they have misalignment burnout. They know they're feeling stuck.
Yeah.
They're starting to see the signs before it's too late, before things get to that crisis mode where maybe you lose your job or you start showing up as someone who you don't want to be anymore, have trouble getting out of bed. Before we go into any of those, how can someone be guided towards like that next step of asking themselves the right question to get more clarity?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a powerful question. Like, what is it that I want if anything were possible? And I think a lot of times people are scared because they think, well, maybe my answer is unrealistic or like, that's so far-fetched. That would never happen for me. But instead of just being so fixated on the form of it, I always like to ask, what is the essence of it? You know, like for somebody who's like, well, I'd be an actor. Well, is it like acting draws you because you get to express yourself? When's the last time you've expressed yourself? Because when I work with a lot of my clients, they've been in this like dysregulated nervous system for so long. It's been like this chronic feeling of like, I feel stuck. I feel overwhelmed. I feel anxious. I feel just stressed out. Like, honestly, when you're in that state of mind or that emotional state, nothing is going to sound exciting to you. Nothing's going to sound possible for you. Right? You're just
the confidence is broken, like you said, right? So
So a lot of what I do is nervous system regulation. When you've been in freeze for so long, you have been in your basement, and what you need to do is get back onto the rooftop. So I want you to actually like do the things that you love doing, but you've put off because you think it's not productive, right? So I have a client who she lights up when she thinks about singing, but she hasn't sung in like forever. So her homework assignment was actually to go in the shower and just sing. And she has so much more joy for her work again. Like she has so much energy, and her job that she hates is like actually tolerable now because she's been able to reconnect with herself. So like to anybody who feels really stuck, it's really about moving from disconnection with you and your body and moving back into a connected, calm state. So that would be number one, is like, what is it that you really desire? What is it that you love? What is it that energizes you and brings you back to joy? Can you just do that and allow yourself to move in that direction? Because again, if you've been in chronic, like I feel burned out, I feel overwhelmed, I feel tired, I feel stressed, I can't even think about that thing because I'm just so busy doing this thing, we need to get back into joy.
Oh, I love that so much. What a beautiful message to end on. I have to say, I love that so much. And I will vouch for your question because I know you don't know this, but when I was in that state, that's the one question that helped me. I don't know how you said the exact same thing, but I went into a meditation on my birthday because I always go to the spa for my birthday for quiet time, for reflection, for listening, tuning in. And when I was really unhappy with my job, I was like, if I could do anything, if anything was possible, if I knew I could not fail, what would I do? And at that point, I had no idea. I had the idea that day to start this business, and it's exactly what I'm doing today. So love that question so much. Emily, if someone wants your help with this, wants to feel in alignment again, wants to feel more joy again with what they're doing, and wants to figure out what's next for them, where do they find you?
Great question. I'm in the middle of building out a 3-day challenge that you can go on your own that will help with a lot of what we spoke about. It's not ready yet, but it will be. In the meanwhile, I would love to invite people to go to cultivateyourcareer.com or cultivate.com, which is actually the name of the business that nobody can pronounce. And then you can find me on Instagram at cultivate or on LinkedIn as Emily Liou.
Love that. Emily, thank you so much for being here. I could talk to you, I think, for the next week, but we'll spare the listeners from this. I'll just have to have you back. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was such a joy. I love your energy. I could tell that you're doing something that lights you up, and that's beautiful. And I can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for that reflection, Irina. So wonderful getting to know you and your listeners as well.
Amazing. Hey, before you go, if you've enjoyed listening to today's show, I would love your support. Please take a moment to leave a review anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And here's the exciting part. I'm running a special contest and giving away a one-on-one session with yours truly. All you have to do is leave a review, take a screenshot, and send it to me in my DMs. All of my contact info is in the show notes. I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to build the career and life that you've been craving together. See you next week.